Good evening and welcome to the June 18th Planning Board meeting. Before we
Just
begin,
have one item?
no, we have multiple items. Emery, it's these items right here. Okay? These, we have these tonight. You have the wrong way. You have the wrong way. Okay?
Here, can I give her this?
Yeah, there you go. Use this one. I'm sorry. So before we begin tonight, I would like to welcome two new members of the Planning Board. Laszlo Castillo, on my right here. He's lived in the village for the past 23 years. He has a BA in architecture from Pratt Institute. He's worked in the construction field for the last 19 years. His knowledge will be a great asset to the village of Tuckahoe, and I just want to take this time to welcome to the board. All right. And the second member is AJ Forgione. He's a recent homeowner for the village in the village of Tuckahoe. He and his family have deep ties to the local town and community. He has a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the University of Connecticut. AJ's professional background is varied. He has worked in the real estate field, construction, and currently in finance. So his background was going to be a great asset to the village of Tuckahoe as well. AJ will be an ad hoc member for the time being, and hopefully one day he'll join the board as well. So I want to also thank both commissioners for volunteering for this board, but I also want to thank there were other candidates that applied for this position, and I think they were very qualified, and hopefully someday soon they can be on the board as well. I also at this time want to take this opportunity to thank Claire Gorman for her many years of service to the village of Tuckahoe. She's been a village trustee, a planning board member, and a member of the signage board, and not to mention many other volunteer positions throughout the village of Tuckahoe. I'm sad to see her go from this planning board. She will be missed, but I know she will continue to volunteer and be part of this village. So thank you for the many years of volunteering, Claire. So Nancy, at this time, please take attendance.
Commissioner Nierenberg.
Present.
Commissioner Barrow.
Here.
Commissioner Chairmella.
Here.
Commissioner Castellano.
Present.
Commissioner Forgione. Chairman Leo.
Present. Okay, so on this evening's, the first item will be the approval of meeting minutes. So we have meeting minutes that go back to last year. So because several members have been in and out, and we haven't had many meetings during that time period, so I think we have a quorum to approve these minutes. So the approval of minutes for the meeting held on May 15, 2018.
So moved.
No, okay, can I have a second? You have the second. Oh, you second, okay. So Nancy, please take
So
it.
I have Commissioner Nierenberg.
Present.
Commissioner-
Four, excuse me.
Commissioner Gorman.
Mr. Chair, if I can address that, as you just stated, Claire's term expired. So I prepared an affidavit for her, which she signed. She reviewed the minutes, and she would cast a vote for approval back to the date that she was on the board. So it's a yes vote for
Okay,
Commissioner Gorman.
thank you.
And then Chairman Leo.
It's very bad.
Yes, approved.
Sound is very bad.
We're having a problem with, I guess, sound. Can everyone hear back there, out there? Okay, well, they can hear.
He isn't here?
No, they can hear.
They can hear.
Okay. All right, so we also have the approval of meeting minutes held on September 19th, 2018. Can I have a motion, please? Second?
So moved.
So Commissioner Nierenberg can't do it. He was absent.
Oh, I'm sorry, it would be,
Chairmella, Gorman, Leo.
okay, so I make a motion, and you second, Emery?
Okay, so Commissioner Chairmella. Commissioner Gorman.
So again, Mr. Chair, Claire Gorman, same issue. The affidavit does contain the minutes from September 19th. She reviewed them and would vote to approve.
Okay,
And Chairman Leo.
approved. And third, last but not least, the March 19th, 2019 meeting minutes. And I think it's March,
June 19th.
I'm sorry,
June 19th. You just did September 19th.
can't be June 19th.
This one here.
It's gotta be March. Oh, June 19th, 2018, I'm sorry. Confusion tonight, okay.
Okay, so it's Commissioner Nierenberg, Commissioner
Four.
Chairmella,
Yeah.
Chairman Leo.
Okay, so can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second? I second?
Commissioner Nierenberg,
Four.
Commissioner Chairmella,
Or
Chairman Leo.
4. Okay. Now, On this evening's agenda, we have the 47 Roger Street has been adjourned, 82 Wallace Street has also been adjourned, 1 Scarsdale Road has been adjourned. We have 21 Columbus Avenue, a new daycare center, 72 Main Street, a new cafe shop, 125 Marbledale Road, that's a new indoor sports facility, and 10 Fisher Avenue, new storefront. So at this time, can 21 Columbus Avenue come up, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Adam Wegstein. I'm a partner in the White Plains law firm of Hockerman, Tortorella, and Wegstein. I am representing the applicant. Here with me tonight on behalf of the Learning Experience, which is the daycare facility, is Matthew Jarmel, who is a licensed architect, as well as Andrew Bellari, who is a traffic consultant from Stonefield Engineering. Essentially, what we're asking you to do, what we're proposing, is to reuse and renovate what's been Epstein's clothing store for many, many, many years. I shopped there as a child, in fact. The reason we're here is because it is a use requiring a special permit from the zoning board, and as a result, site plan approval from your board as well,
Right.
even though it's a reoccupancy. So those applications have been made. We have not yet been heard by the zoning board of appeals. The daycare center will be open during the week, not on weekends. What we have before you is the site plan. I want to state upfront that as a legal matter, because of the change in the SECRA regulations, the State Environmental Quality Review Act regulations that went into effect in January of this year, because what's proposed is the reuse of a commercial structure for a special permit use in the zone, it is now considered to be a Type 2 action for which no environmental review is required. And I can provide the citation to the board or your attorney if you'd like.
Yeah, provide it to our attorney, please.
Absolutely. What we are planning to show tonight is to have Matthew Jarmel take you a little bit through the operations and the characteristics of what is proposed, and then to have our traffic consultant talk to you regarding parking. This is a use, the daycare use, which, as I said, is a specially permitted use in the business zone. However, your code does not have any express parking requirements built into the parking chart or anywhere else. So the decision as to what an appropriate amount of off-street parking is for the use rests solely within the discretion of your board. You consider what is to be adequate. We believe the study with which you've been provided and the testimony which will be presented tonight will establish that the parking in the area of the site is sufficient to accommodate the use. And without further ado, let me introduce Matthew and then Andrew, who are the more important people than me. Thank you.
Antonio, can I ask one question? Can I ask one question?
To who? To her, yeah.
This is not parking, this is drop off and safety.
We'll talk about that. Right. You could, yeah, we can discuss that.
Okay. That's my concern.
Yeah. What did I do with the parking spot? Is that mine or?
That's fine. You can share it.
Did you stay it?
No.
I think you did.
Do I need to be sworn in?
No,
No? Okay.
you're good to go.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Jarmel. I'm a registered architect with the firm of Jarmel Keisel Architects and Engineers. We're located in Livingston, New Jersey. In addition to being an architect, some people have qualified me as an expert in child care operations. My firm has designed close to 300 child care centers throughout the country for major brands such as the Learning Experience, which we're here to speak about this evening, but other national brands which you may have heard of, such as Goddard, Kitty Academy, Children of America, and Primrose. interesting thing about Westchester County, as you may or may not know, it's obviously a great place to live, very popular, densely populated. It's in dire need of childcare, and there aren't any, very few national brands or chains located in Westchester County. The Learning Experience, which is a national provider of childcare centers, has about 240 operating centers around the country, and they've targeted Westchester as a potential expansion area for them. There's actually a project that's recently been approved in Briarcliff Manor or in the town of Ossene that's proposed to be constructed hopefully later this year, and there's a project that's in for building permits in White Plains right now. I'd first like to kind of tell you a little bit about what a child care center is, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. These centers are licensed by the state, Department of Family and Children, and they're typically designed to cater to the child care needs of working parents, usually either single parents or where both mother and father are working. They're designed to house children that are as young as 6 weeks of age to approximately 6 years of age, or around the kindergarten area. This particular center is proposed to operate Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. It's not opened on the weekends. The Learning Experience currently, with their close to 240 so centers, takes care of approximately 30,000 children a day. So they've been doing this for a while. The Learning Experience under this brand name has been in business about 16 years. And the owners of the Learning Experience prior to the Learning Experience had another brand called Tutor Time. Collectively, the management of the company has built over 500 child care centers and taken care of tens of thousands of children. Very well known. They offer both child care in terms of daycare or say babysitting services, but also child development services and a curriculum that they're very proud of. They actually find that about 9 out of 10 of their children, when they finish preschool and enter kindergarten, either in a public or a private school session, can read and write. They're better socialized, and many of them are actually healthier in the sense that they have better attendance in school because they've been exposed to germs at an earlier age, and their immune systems have developed. What we propose to do is take the current Epstein's store, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. I understand they've been in the community for a very long time, and renovate it and convert it into a child care center. The vast majority of the renovations will be done on the interior of the building. Before you now, which I entitled Drawing SD 2.2, is elevations of the building that currently exist. The color one on top is the main entry to the building. We propose to really keep the pretty brick, clean it up, and add signage. They typically put an entry sign that looks like children's building blocks that say 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D around the door. And then on top, they have their national trademark logo, the Learning Experience, and Bubbles the elephant, which is one of their many mascots that they use in their facility. On the sides of the building right now, you might know if you're familiar with it, aren't in great condition. They were painted block, peeling, kind of cracking. We propose to fill in all the cracks, fix the mortar, and just basically repaint it. The building has a very small parking lot in the rear, which we will be converting to a playground, and we'll actually also be demolishing a small portion of the building that was a loading dock area that I'm pointing to now with my pen. So the building is 2 stories in height, although from the road it only appears to be a single story. It has a full cellar that walks out and is at a lower level. So from the rear it's a 2-story building where it faces the track. We're going to be taking the parking that's in the back, converting that to an outdoor play area, and then renovating both the 1st and 2nd floors of the building. The drawing I'm putting up now is schematic floor plans. The drawing on the right is the 1st floor of the building, where we'll reuse the existing entry to the store to create a vestibule and then a reception room. One thing I want to kind of point out is, unlike a school that has a set start and stop time, let's say 8:30, where all the children that attend that school show up, The child care center is really designed to cater to the needs of the parents, and they're allowed to drop and pick up children whenever they want, actually. And they have a combination of full-day programs, which might be from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., half-day, three-quarter days, and it varies based on the local demand and requirements. Typically, our centers will see drop-off and pickup occur between 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. in the mornings, and really as early as sometimes noon, depending on the program, but most of the children from about 4 to 6 to 6:30 in the afternoons will be picked up and dropped off. The way the center operates, it's got a very high security profile. Parents are given a key fob. The outer doors of the vestibule are open during business hours, they're glass, but the inner vestibule door is locked, also glass. So only a parent can enter it. If you or I didn't have attended to enter the building, we'd have to be buzzed in and greeted when they come in by a receptionist. At that front door, there's a touch screen where each individual child has a PIN number that the parent logs in. And at that point, that serves a purpose for billing, but also attendance and safety and security. And at that point, the school takes, we'll call it responsibility for the child, brings them to the classroom. And once they're in the environment, they don't leave again until their parents pick them up. You know, you might see some operators put children in large buggies and push them throughout town, or walk children that are young enough with a rope where they hold on to each other. The learning experience does not do that. Children stay in the building. They go outside to the outside play area, which is directly connected to the building. It's fenced with a 6-foot fence, so it's secure. It's a solid fence, so the children can't see out and be distracted, and vice versa, people can't see them. Because we have limited site area here, our exterior playground is a little less than 1,000 square feet, but we have a large building of about 14,000 square feet. We've allocated a large indoor play area of about 1,265 square feet that can be used for inclement weather, or used when, in lieu of the exterior door. The process where a parent drops and picks up their child has been studied. In fact, our traffic engineer this evening will talk about that in more detail than myself. He's studied several dozen operating centers. It takes about 5 minutes for a parent to drop their child off, log them in, and pick them up. One of the things that's exciting about your location is I think, probably why a lot of you live here, is the train. This site is 450 feet away from your train station, and we envision that many of the parents that will use the center for their children are hopping on that train, probably already parking the area or walking to the train station from their home. Many of the children are young, and they'll come in strollers. And because we have a large building, we're actually going to accommodate the strollers. So a parent, when they drop their child off in the morning, if they walk here, or if they come from a car that's parked nearby and the child's in a stroller or even a car seat, the facility will have storage facilities so they can leave those strollers and car seats there all day when they go off to work, which will make it convenient for them. Once they're in the facility, there's an array of classrooms. Some of them are designed for children as young as 6 weeks and various ages. They're all designed for age appropriateness of the children. Some of them have bathrooms, some of them not, depending on the age of the child, if they're in diapers or if they're toileting. All the bathrooms, though, are within the classrooms themselves, so the teachers don't have to leave to take the child and leave to a hall bath and leave the children unattended. Some of the features that we'll be adding to the building is, currently there are 2 stairs in them, but they're not in fire stair towers. We'll be putting them in fire stairs. There's no elevator in the building. We'll be putting a new elevator in the building. Building has a sprinkler system. It will be enhanced. It will get a fire alarm system. From a security standpoint, it will get closed-circuit TV in every classroom, every corridor in and around the building and the playground, and monitors will be in the director's office to view them as well. The center rooms are sized in accordance with state regulations that are based on the age of the child, as well as what we'll call minimum group sizes, maximum group sizes, and sort of caregiver ratios, teacher to student ratios. So you might note on this plan, which was submitted to you, is we have rooms infant through what we call pre-KK, and we have a room called Make Believe Boulevard. The license capacity of this center is set by the state. However, they won't set it. Obviously, it has to be approved through your planning and zoning board. It gets building permit issued, your construction code official, upon completion, will issue a certificate of occupancy. That's when the state comes in and inspects it and actually sets the licensing. So we've projected that this center will have total capacity of 178 children at full capacity. That's assuming they filled it to 100%, which would be wonderful, but rarely happens. And the reason it rarely happens is, one, they do have to keep spaces open in each classroom because as children mature and grow, they have to be moved into an appropriate environment. A good example of that is you may have a room filled with children that are crawling, and one day one of them stands up. That child that stands up is all of a sudden a danger to the others because they could step on them, pull things down, trip over them. So they're brought to a classroom where there's more age-specific or developmentally specific children. So they always leave a few slots open in each room to rotate and move about. And also you'll find that the center would have to be very difficult to run at 100% capacity. So it's licensed by the state, probably runs at about 85% capacity in terms of the business model. There's also a room within it. There's a secondary, I mentioned a large indoor play area in the cellar, but on the first floor there's a indoor playroom called Make Believe Boulevard, which is a room that gets licensed as a classroom because it's used for motor skill development, other activities with the children. But similar to a conference room in an office building where the occupants of that office building use the conference room, the children in other classrooms use that room, like a gymnasium almost in a school. So it's not, it gets licensed, but it actually reduces the actual count of children that are in the building.
What age group does that serve?
It really serves children that are starting to walk. So I would call it like a toddler, probably a child that's 18 to 24 months, all the way up to 6. And we call it, I believe, Boulevard because there's facades on the walls of the building that are in relief that look like a downtown village. There's a post office, there's a fire station, auto repair, and the children can do role playing. And they'll also, you'll notice on my plan, there's a little track in there, so they'll have things like big wheels and tricycles that they can ride around the track as well. Some interesting statistics that we've learned when it comes to these centers, which affect parking and traffic, which I think is a paramount part of this application that our traffic engineer will talk about, is that approximately 25% of the children that will attend this facility will be siblings. They'll come in the same car with the same parent. On any given day, 10% of the enrolled children will be out sick because they are getting sick as young children and building their immune system. So that kind of reduces trips that are proposed for the site. One or two other comments is that under the building code, this is a mixed use. It's an educational use for children that are older than 2.5, and it's what's called an institutional use for children that are less than 2.5. And similar to maybe a nursing home, where the building code takes into consideration that the occupants of the building don't either have the physical or cognitive ability to escape it in an emergency. And as a result of that, there are a lot of life safety enhancements that are put into the building that other buildings, like an office building or town hall, wouldn't have. For example, any room with more than 10 occupants has 2 means of egress, either to the corridor or directly to the outside. All other use groups in the code require 50 people until you get the second means of egress, like a room like this one, for example. There is a sprinkler system, there is a fire alarm system. There will be evacuation plans put into place. They actually will do fire drills. They'll work with your local first responders to talk about where children should go in the event of emergency. And part of their licensing requirement will be to have an evacuation plan where if this building had to be evacuated because of a power failure or, God forbid, a fire, that the children have to have a plan to bus the children and have a contract in place for the children to be picked up and taken somewhere else. And usually that's done arrangements are made either at a public school, a church, a synagogue, or sometimes a hotel. But that's all part of the licensing requirements that they need to meet in order to get their license. That essentially completes my testimony or my discussion tonight, and I'd be very pleased to address any questions you have or pass it on to my colleague who will talk about parking and the traffic studies that he's done.
Yes, one of the items we discussed at the workshop is you have a staircase that's behind the building,
Yes.
and that happens to be on MTA property. So the question is, since ownership of the building will change hands, does that revert back to Metro North? And I asked your team to kind of investigate that. I'm not sure if you have any sort of update for us.
We do not. It's
Okay.
our belief that it's an encroachment onto their property. We have to check with the surveyor. He does show the survey line at the rear of the building,
Right.
but it serves the building. And I'm not aware if there's an easement for it, but we will certainly confirm that for you.
Yes, please. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can we take a 2-minute break? I think they have to reboot the audio system.
Of course, sure.
Visual system.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
No, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if we're back on the record, there is one more thing I'd like to add
Sure.
before I entertain
Of course.
questions. Our attorney, Mr. Weckstein, talked about how the project's exempt from, I guess, a secra, but I did want to make the board aware that as contract purchasers, there's been an extensive environmental study done of the building. There was a phase 1 done. The phase 1 actually recommended searching for an underground storage tank, which was done and found to be a false. There was no tank, and there was actually an excavation to confirm it. And there is actually a little bit of a oil leak in the boilers of the building that will be cleaned up. Other than that, there was no signs of things like lead paint or asbestos.
Are the boilers within the building?
Boilers
Uh,
are,
uh,
but they're going to be.
The oil tanks are in the building? I'm sorry, I meant to say.
There are storage oil tanks in the building.
Within the
However,
building.
all that's coming out.
Okay.
And the building will have new rooftop HVAC equipment that's gas fired. This is notable in other states, I mean, New Jersey, a neighboring state. You can't get a license for a child care until the state DEP approves it. That's not the case in New York. So, but the operator won't take it unless you prove to them that it's a safe building from an
Okay.
environmental standpoint.
So, can you walk us through, I'm a parent and I'm dropping off my child. Can you walk us through the whole process? I know you started it initially, but I think the biggest concern that we all have here on the board is the drop-off, parking. So can you kind of, from a parking perspective or drop-off perspective, can you kind of explain to us how you envision this to take place?
I can,
Right.
but if you would allow me, I'd like to defer that to my colleague,
By all
Mr.
means.
Villard, who is a traffic expert.
Okay.
He's done a detailed parking study, and he can address that, and then I can kind of fill in a little bit
Okay.
if needed.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Andrew Valeri. It's V as in Victor, Illari. I'm a project manager at Stonefield Engineering and Design with offices located at 584 Broadway, Suite 310, New York, New York. My office has prepared a report, a parking utilization study that was dated June 10th that was submitted to the board.
Mhm.
We did notice a small correction in the report, so I do have a revised copy of the report if
Okay.
you'd allow me to resubmit.
Since you're on crutches, why don't you ask someone else to do that rather than,
Thank you. So that's going to be the basis of most of my testimony tonight. But
Okay.
what I'll start with is to talk about how this site operates in terms of traffic and parking.
Sure.
I have had the opportunity over the course of my career, and also basically my firms had the opportunity to work on the learning experience applications since early 2000, maybe 2011, the better part of the decade. So we do have a vast understanding of how these sites operate in terms of traffic and parking. To go through how a parent drops off a child and accesses the building, how it starts is you get onto Columbus Avenue from wherever you may live. You find an available on-street parking space. To build on top of the presentation that Mr. Jarmel gave, you would walk physically your child into the facility. That means that you're in a parking space, you turn your car off, you take the keys with you, you're walking with your child into the facility. At that point, you have the key fob access to get through the security, sign your child in, and after that, you head back to your car. We have studied this a number of times. It is around 5 minutes, and actually what we found is that in the morning when parents are dropping off, it's actually shorter because you might be on your way to work, whereas in the afternoon you have more time to talk to your child care provider about how did the day go, that type of thing. So it takes a little bit closer to 10 minutes, but it's still within that 5 to 10 minute range. So these individual parking spaces that would be occupied on Columbus Avenue, maybe on Underhill, maybe in the municipal lot across the street, they're anticipated to be utilized for a brief period of time. And that's kind of why this works. The parking turns over very quickly. And when I look at this application, what I see is a great opportunity to reutilize the existing building. It also is a somewhat underutilized part of Columbus Avenue today. You do have a use, and this is something that I'm going to talk a little bit more about later in my presentation. You have a use that's somewhat compatible with the adjacent uses around it. It is a commercially zoned property. There's a number of uses that could occupy this building that would have different traffic and parking characteristics, but the daycare center is actually a very good use for the space. And to further echo a couple of the points that Mr. Jarmel made, it's I think on the website it's the learning experience, which I'm going to abbreviate as TLE a couple times. It's just kind of built in at this point. I think on the website it may be listed as an academy for early education, which makes you feel like it's a school. It's really not a school in terms of how it functions in traffic and parking. There's no bell at 7:15. Everyone has to be there, where you might see at a high school where there's a long queue of cars where people are getting out of the car. You have younger children, so that's kind of why you have to walk your child in, let alone the security. As Mr. Jarmel mentioned, we've studied a great number of these. We found that drop-off and pickup happens over an expansive period of time. And what we've seen as a result of that is that there's a dispersion of traffic. There's no significant spike in traffic at 7:15 when the school bell rings. Parents and guardians drop off their children when it's convenient for them. Usually it's on their way to work or wherever they're going, way to school. What we've seen in the morning, that drop-off does happen over 3 hours, and that's kind of it mellows the effect of 178 students all arriving at the same period. In the afternoon, there is an extended period for pickup. It really depends on parental schedules. So you could have people picking up around noon. You could have people picking up at 2:30. You could have people picking up at 6:30. So again, you have this dispersion of traffic where it's really not an impact during the hours when Columbus Avenue or Main Street may be peaking. We've studied a great number of these, so we have been able to observe the traffic trends of a TLE center. There is 25% siblings, 10% absent on an everyday basis, so you don't necessarily see 178 cars coming every day. You see actually a little bit less than that. Siblings, you drive in one car, maybe a minivan. If you're absent on a day that you're not a car that's added to Columbus, you're not a car that's parking on street, taking up parking. To talk a little bit about the study that we've prepared, it really breaks down to two parts. We establish the existing condition, which is how many people park in the neighborhood today. And actually, I'll reference the exhibit on the easel right now. This is an aerial exhibit prepared by my office. It has areas of the adjacent site vicinity outlined in yellow. This is an exhibit that's in your report as well. I think it's the third or fourth page of the appendix. The yellow areas outline where we studied on-street or municipal parking for this project. That's mainly along Columbus Avenue. There's a small portion of Underhill where public parking is provided, and then there is a municipal lot at the corner of Underhill and Columbus. I think it's right out this window right here. All the parking is public. It is metered. There are variations in how long you can park in each one of those spaces. Some are 2-hour limit, some are 4-hour limit. I've seen some that are 10-hour limit, and there's also some near the Civic Center right down the street. Those are 12-hour parking. When you look at how many people currently park in this network today, we see that, when we did our counts. We did counts on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, just a couple of weeks ago. We were here between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. to capture the total amount of operating hours of TLE. As Mr. Jarmel mentioned, they typically are between 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening, so we were out in the neighborhood for the exact part of the day. The exact part of the day that TLE would be adding cars. There is a facility that currently operates at the subject premises. It's Epstein's Dry Goods. It's a store you're all very familiar with, I'm sure. When we were there on May 23rd, it was open, so when we see how many cars were parked there, there could have been cars that were parked there for Epstein's. In the future, should this project be approved and built, those cars would not be there. We did not take a credit for those cars to be conservative, and what you see is that when we were there on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, the critical parking condition was in the middle of the day, and it was about 68% occupied, which means that there's somewhat around 30 parked cars, 37 parked cars available. As I mentioned, we did not take a credit for Epstein's, and that's a measure to be conservative and prove that even conservatively this application would work for the public parking in the vicinity. The second part of the study talks about how much parking does a daycare center need. We've done multiple studies in New York and also New Jersey to determine how much parking does a learning experience need. Learning experiences are typically around 10,000 square feet, reoccupying this building, which is about 14,000 square feet. And if you actually take a reduction for the indoor play area, you're working around 13,000 square feet. It's a little bit larger than some of the sites that we've studied. And the key thing about the observations that we've done between basically 2019 and 2011 is that every daycare center we go to for the learning experience, we see the exact same thing, which is a testament to how they operate. It typically needs about 25 to 26 parking stalls. That's how many cars are generated, right? And you may say, how does this work? There's 178 children. Why does it only need 26 vehicles? It's because of that dispersion in traffic where people are not staying for very long. It happens over an extended period of time. The accumulation doesn't ever get to 25 or 26. In this case, since we have a little bit larger of a building, what we did was we projected the amount of parking up. If you go from 10,000, or let's say 26 parking spaces for a 10,000 square foot building, a 13,000 square foot building would need 33 is what we've concluded. There's also industry standards that we can reference to tell us how many parking spaces a daycare center of this size needs. What we've referenced is the industry standard Institute of Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual. That's the 4th edition, or the 5th edition, excuse me. It also indicates that a daycare of this size would need 33 parking spaces. So the analysis that we're including right now accounts for 33 parking spaces needed for this daycare center. One other item that I should note is that of the centers that we've studied in New York, New Jersey for parking, those are the ones that we've studied and shown that it only needs 25 or 26 spaces. The average license capacity of those centers was 175. So indicating that this site will need 33 spaces may be overly conservative, but the analysis that we've done shows that it still works, because if you overlay the amount of parking that the daycare needs with the amount of availability in the network, you still find that there's going to be 11 spaces in the future still available for any other uses on Columbus Avenue, on Underhill, the adjacent retail uses in the area. One of the things that Mr. Jarmel mentioned that's unique about Tuckahoe and Westchester County is the train. You do have great service at Tuckahoe train station. What we've done is we pulled data about what the commuting population is like in Tuckahoe. And we've actually found that 40% of the population in Tuckahoe uses public transit to get to work. Now, the train station in Tuckahoe is about 450 feet to the south. It is possible that the public parking for the train station could also double as parking for daycare center. Matt, could you go to the back side of my aerial?
Can you repeat your last statement?
Sorry?
Can you repeat your last statement?
My last statement, yes,
Yeah.
sure. So, that's upside down, actually. So what I was mentioning is that we've referenced U.S. Census Bureau statistics on Tuckahoe.
No, no, regarding the available parking in
The
other
available
lots,
parking?
in other lots? I think you mentioned
Yeah, the
some.
lots, right. So what I was saying was that 40% of residents in Tuckahoe commute via public transit.
Right.
In large part, that's going to be the train station, Metro North.
Okay.
What I was mentioning earlier is that you could park in public lots. For example, this one right here, which is just south of Main Street. This is, for reference, the site is right here. This is about 450 feet to public parking for the train station.
Mhm.
And then you have other public parking lots
That-
further to the south.
That's
and
not
then-
public parking.
Sorry?
Those lots down there
Right.
are,
They're
those are
permitted.
permitted lots, and they're only available after, I think, 4 PM? Because
It's-
those are not available for you, sorry?
They are possible to be used by TLE parents if the parent has permitted parking, if they're using that lot on a daily basis to get to work. What I'm
If
saying
they,
is that,
so if they pay for a permit to park in that lot,
Mhm.
I mean,
let's say they're
Okay.
commuting on a daily basis via the train station.
and what percentage do you think that of parents are gonna be permitted?
It's hard to say for sure, but one of the benefits of this application and why I think it works is that you do have the train station here and you do have a walkable network. So someone could be on their way to the train station, stop by, drop off their kid, and then go to the train station. They also could park in one of the lots that's more proximate to the train station, intending to go to the train, and then instead drop off their child first just to go back to the train. It is possible.
Yes, it's possible, but I would imagine maybe 1%, 2%. I'm not imagining a significant portion of parents that are going to be attending this center are going to be registered parking.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
so,
don't anticipate it being the majority of traffic. I believe that most people will be parking on the street on
Right.
Columbus or Underhill or in the municipal lot
Okay.
and using that, but I'm saying that it's a possibility that could potentially
1,
reduce.
2, 3 tops, maybe?
I would think it's more than that. I think it's more than that.
Well, what are you basing it on?
The fact that there's 40% of the population here that already
40% of the population, generally the people who purchase the parking spaces, the permits for parking spaces, do not live in Tuckahoe, because Tuckahoe, for the most part, is a walk. Most people can walk to the train station from where they live, because, as you said, we have 2 train stations. So most people, and correct me if I'm wrong, who purchase these permit parking come from Yonkers, Eastchester, I don't know, Mount Vernon, but, they come from a distance. So I'm not sure what you're basing it on, and I'd like to have a little more clarity on what you're behind those, that analysis, basically.
it's possible that they do this. It'd be hard to put your finger on exactly one number specific on how they would do this. It'd be one of those things where after it's operating, you'd be able to study it. I'm envisioning that a portion could do this. I won't be able to tell you that it's exactly 12%, but it could happen. And that's one of the reasons that I think that a site that is providing no parking for a daycare center, it could work in this setting. Because as you mentioned, there are people that walk in the neighborhood, as Mr. Jarmel mentioned.
Sure.
You could be walking, let's say, down Columbus Avenue to get to the train. You could leave your stroller in the building while you're at work all day. And then once you're done with work, you're heading back up the street, pick up your child, and then your stroller's already there. It's a
Yeah,
possibility
that
for
works
a lot.
great in the summer, but in the winter.
Of course. Or on a day like today with the rain.
Exactly, right, so.
What I'd like to wrap up my presentation with is our understanding of the traffic impacts of daycare centers. You could reference industry standard manuals to tell you how much traffic a daycare center of this size would generate. That's similarly using the industry standard Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, 10th edition. You could also perform observations of other operating daycare centers, and that's what we've done. And when you compare what's called trip generation by the textbook and also by our observations, you see that by the textbook, it's a little bit of an overestimation, and that's a testament to the fact that I was saying earlier, there's a dispersion of traffic with the extended drop-off and pickup period. There's a industry standard methodology that if you're generating 100 trips or less, your development's generating 100 trips or less, doesn't necessarily require you to do a level of service analysis. In this case, we find that a daycare center of this size, based on our observations, is bordering right around 100 trips per hour. I'm sorry, per peak hour. So I'm saying that's like probably in the morning, one single peak hour. And for those reasons, we have not yet conducted a level of service analysis. I don't anticipate that there would be an adverse impact, and that's just because of traffic being dispersed throughout the course of the day rather than a spike for the drop-off bell. So to conclude my presentation, I just want to wrap up by saying that we've studied a large number of these facilities. We know how they operate in terms of traffic and parking. In this case, in this setting, I believe it's a great application for the village. The parking on street could work for the application. We anticipate that there'd be, at a minimum, 11 stalls left over in the future, and that's a highly conservative analysis by not taking a credit for traffic that Epstein's is generating, and then also overestimating the amount of parking that TLE needs based on our observations. Probably is around 25 or 26 parking stalls when we've forecasted in this report to be 33. For those reasons, I believe that the application works in terms of traffic and parking.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. You did 1 day of study, correct? Which is a Thursday before the Memorial Day weekend, correct? I think you need to do a couple more days. I think Thursday before Memorial Day weekend, people took vacation. I know I did. I went away that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, till Tuesday. So I'm sure, I would think that the normal volume of cars / parking might be different in a non-holiday week. So I would like you guys to go back and do not only 1 day, but a couple of days just to get kind of a more realistic traffic study. So the second question I have is, have you done any sort of analysis on what the additional 100 some odd cars how would that affect Columbus itself? So for example, I don't know if you know, but we have the light at the corner of Main Street, right? Do you know how long it takes to complete one cycle? How long does it take?
140 seconds.
I counted 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so that's 120. So it's a long cycle. I know it's got a right coming. So my concern would be that you really need to do a traffic study that shows what the impact of the additional cars, specifically during peak periods, how that will affect the traffic not only at Columbus but on Main Street itself, right? Because there's instances where I take the train in the morning, and I know sometimes it backs up on Main Street all the way down towards the park. And I know sometimes in the afternoon you're going to have that same issue, those peak periods when people are coming home. So you will be generating traffic, and you really need to understand what the impact will be on Main Street, specifically that light. The other issue I'm concerned about is that you're going to have a staff, and at the workshop, it's indicated that you'll have 20 full-time employees and 9 part-time employees. So where are those people parking?
Okay, I'll start with that one.
Sure.
The amount of staff that we have is correct. It's 29 staff members, and that number is similar to a lot of the daycare centers that we've studied. And what's important is that the time of day that staff is working, it varies. Not everyone's there this full time frame. Not everyone's there at 6:30. Not everyone's there until 6:30 in the evening. There is a variation. There's some people that could only work 4 hours in the middle of the day when there's
Those are the part-time guys.
Part-time guys, exactly.
Right. But you have 20 full-time people. So, so if you look at your day, it's a 12-hour day, right? I mean, realistically, most people work 8 hours, so there'll be a stagger. So you have to assume a certain number of parking spaces will be required, and there will be an overlap because I'm sure there's a period of time where the full staff will be in the building. So you're still going to require potentially 25 parking spaces. So I need to understand where these people will park. So that's a thought. Now, the other thing I need to I want to make sure you understand is, are you aware that we have a daycare facility within this building? Okay, so I was a village trustee several years ago, and one of the concerns that the Andrus, which is in the building, their issue was that their teachers parked in the surrounding streets, and typically it's a 2-hour parking. And they have to go move their cars after 2 hours because our parking people go and mark the tires. And unfortunately, they do get a lot of tickets. And Andrews came before our board and said, "Hey, listen, can you help us? Can you believe us? Can you give us some parking spaces?" The reality is we don't have any parking spaces to give, and I mean it's one of our challenges of being a small village with 2 train stations. So I know they're having a problem. You're going to exacerbate it by adding potentially 30 more people to the local streets. You have an issue with the light. It's a very long light. Your biggest challenge is going to be parking for the most part, for not only for the people who are bringing children to your facility, but also staff. In addition, Andrus has a specific drop-off location where you cite a couple of parking spaces along the back of the building here. So it's an indented section. I believe 2 cars can park and drop off, and it's a safe way to drop off. Most people, unfortunately, Columbus is a main artery. It's a well-traveled road, so we have some reservations and concerns. So there needs to be a way to kind of figure this out. How hopefully get a designated location where families could come in and just drop off their cars. Because one of the things I'm sure people envision is that, hey, will people double park? But yeah, I'm late. I got to catch a train. I have no parking spaces. I need to double park. Yeah, I'll be here for 30 seconds. Blah blah blah. Right. So that's a concern. And again, we don't want to exacerbate a potential issue that we already know we have on that particular corner. You have a fire hydrant in front of your building. You have a crosswalk in front of your building. So in front of your building, you only have 2 parking spaces towards the light. There was a proposal for 4 tandem parking spaces inside your driveway. That doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, I want to make sure you guys are fully aware of that. So I think those are the fundamental concerns I think the board has. I know some other people have some other concerns.
There is a number of points there, and I'd like to just respond to it as
Sure.
much of them as I
Yeah,
can.
sure.
The staff parking, that is something that we've looked into, so there could be staff members that are parked for more than the 5 to 10 minutes that a parent would be. We've looked at...
Staff will park 5 to 10
No,
minutes?
no, I'm saying staff would be parking on street longer
Correct.
than parents who are only there for 5 to 10
Right.
minutes.
But your staff can take those, the 12-hour metered spots for argument's sake.
That's exactly right. So there are 12-hour metered stalls
Right.
closer to the Civic Center. There are 10-hour stalls in the municipal pot along the street.
Yeah.
And there are some stalls that are 4-hour parking, and those might be suitable for the part-time staff. So it is
Keep in
possible.
mind, I think the thinking behind those parking spaces are people who are just going into the city for a quick meeting and coming back. And 12 hours is typically a person going to work for a day, and so you're sharing those parking spaces
Right, exactly.
with. So they're not going to be dedicated to your program. So
That's one of the benefits of shared parking.
Yeah.
You have one parking stall that serves multiple uses over the course of a day or over the course of a week. So you're right, it could be someone parked in stall A for a 6-hour, for a couple-hour meeting in Manhattan. They come back and their 4-hour parking stall is still valid.
Right.
It also, the next day, could be used by daycare staff, and that's one of the benefits
Yeah.
you'd hate to see in such a vibrant downtown community as Tuckahoe, excess surface parking, right? An empty parking lot, which might not be that common in these
Sure.
neck of the woods, but I just don't want to provide too much parking. Another point you make is about 1 day of counts.
yes.
We did do it on May 23rd. It was the weekend before Memorial Day
Memorial
weekend
Day,
on
right.
Monday.
Mhm.
We do reference a couple of industry standard publications to figure out what's a good day to do counts. Typically, a middle of the week
Right.
day is good. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's what we did here. Not open on the weekend, so it's not like we did a count on Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, because then I would agree with you. Most of the traffic's gone on Saturday Memorial Day weekend in Tuckahoe. The only issue with doing additional counts is the school calendar. So next week is the last week of schools, public schools in Tuckahoe. So if we were going to do any type of analysis, we'd have to do it
Next
next
week,
week,
yeah.
or September.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep in mind with this. I've worked on a number of these applications, upwards of 24 applications with Mr. Jarmel. Typically, we do 1 day of analysis, and that's suitable for most boards. So I will say that what we've done is typical of a traffic study that's recognized throughout the industry.
You did a parking analysis. You didn't do a traffic study.
That's correct.
So it's quite different.
That's correct. So another thing that you mentioned was the impact of this project on the intersection, Main Street and Columbus. Something that we've seen with these applications is that parents who are on their way to an ultimate destination, maybe it is work, maybe it's school, they stop by on their normal route to at the daycare center. You could be going southbound on Columbus to get to the train station, and you could have a child that goes to the daycare center, temporarily park on a legal parking space on Columbus Avenue, drop your child off, go back and keep going southbound to get to the train station. Not necessarily an additional car that's added to the intersection. That person would already be there with or without the daycare center. So it's referred to as pass-by traffic.
Well, they would still have to come through an intersection to get there. If they're going southbound,
Right.
you're still coming through an intersection.
They would be there with or without the daycare center. That's my point. Another thing is that I've actually failed to mention this in the bulk of my presentation is why this use is different than any other use that could be permitted here. Commercially zoned, you could think of any use that's per the village's zoning code that could occupy this building as of right. Could be a retail use, could be a restaurant use. What's important is that in the middle of the day is when we saw the most amount of parking in the existing condition. That means that at 2:15 in the afternoon, that's when we saw the most amount of parking on Columbus in the exhibit that had the yellow outlines, right?
Okay.
You could approve a retail use generating traffic and parking that adds traffic in the middle of the day. The daycare center doesn't really generate any traffic in the middle of the day. If it is, it's a small minority of traffic that is pickups happening between, let's say, noon and 2:30. You could have a restaurant.
We're talking about this application. I don't want to talk about other businesses. At this point, we really want to focus on what your business is. If your deal doesn't work and a retailer comes in, we'll worry about the retailer. I mean, at this point, we really need to talk about your facility and how it impacts the village.
Right. And what my point is that in comparison to other permitted uses, this use is a use that peaks at 8:30 in the morning.
Correct.
Not when the intersection's peaking and not when parking on Columbus Avenue is peaking either.
How do you know what time the intersection is peaking?
You can reference the published data by New York State DOT for when what traffic volumes on Columbus Avenue, Main Street are like. This happens in the afternoon.
Is that correct, George? So let me introduce you to George. He's our traffic consultant. So I mean, at this point, if you could chime in and help here.
I have not seen that data, but it would be good if you could then, maybe present that data next time that you're here. I can address some of the points that were brought up. I think to some degree, what he has mentioned is correct in the sense that daycare centers are kind of, there's an advantage to see a daycare center located near a train station because people can combine their trip. So you have a parent that comes from home to the train station, they drop off the kids as they go to the station, and depending on how close the daycare center is to the parking, they may park and then walk the kid, but in this case, it's not that close. But it is, I think what you're trying to say, we call that diverted trips. And in that sense, that's a benefit that not every trip that goes to the daycare center is an additional vehicle trip in the area. But I think you should do a traffic impact analysis, and you can then take into consideration the percentage of trips that may be, trips that go to and from the train station that would be diverted trips and would therefore not be additional vehicle trips. I think it is worthwhile doing that analysis for that one intersection that is very critical. In terms of parking, I think it would be good to break down the parking for employees and parking for parent pickup and drop-off. the number that you cited, the 33 spaces, is a total for both parents, pick up and drop off, and the employee parking. And I think it's important to look at those two separately because they have separate demands. And I think you should identify where the employees could park, where will they find those 12-hour meters within the vicinity that are available. So I think your survey that you did, and you will do another survey, should break it out between 2-hour parking and 12-hour parking, and the parking that's available for drop-off pickup and the parking that may be available for the employees. I think it would be good to know what is the maximum number of employees at any one time in the building, so that you can make those estimations. We would like to see also the data that you use to compare. You have done a lot of studies. I think you have a lot of data. And I assume you may have data also that tell us, for those various locations, what % of people come by foot? Do you have that information? I think it would be interesting to see, for other TLE centers, the % of people that comes by foot versus people that are driven. We happened to do a survey about a year ago for 2 TLE centers in much more urban environments, Hoboken and Brooklyn. And it's true, a lot of people walk in those conditions. And the number of vehicles, that were added for drop-off and pickup was very low, much lower than 26 or 33. But, that depends on the kind of environment that you're in. And so I think it would be interesting to see if you have any surveys in a similar environment to Tuckahoe, in terms of density, in terms of numbers of people living within a walking distance. I'd like to, try to be a little bit more accurate with this, so that we all understand the conditions. The other thing I want to point out, you surveyed an occupancy of about 100 spaces, and your calculations show a total demand after the childcare center is in place of 90 spaces. That's a 90% occupancy. You probably know that in parking, when we achieve an 85%, 90% occupancy, we consider that at capacity, because it's very difficult to occupy those last 10 spaces. They may be at a location that you can't reach very well. So you have to take into consideration that, the study you did, and there may be worst case assumptions in there, but the study you did basically shows that you're at capacity. What we call practical capacity in parking. You probably know that. It tends to, depending on the layout and design, it can vary between 85%, 90%, maybe 95% if you have a system that tells you where the last spaces are that are available. But in this case, you're in a kind of a small village environment. I would argue that the real practical capacity is at 85% occupancy. So you should take that into consideration as well. I think those are all the comments I have at this stage, but I don't know if there are any other questions. We'll be happy to answer.
I just wanted to add, and I'm in agreement with Antonio and the board. I think we've been discussing this, and by all means, we're trying to see, how things can work here. But I look at some of these parking spots, and I look at, there's children involved. So you're actually, the proximity of these parking lots to the site, it's quite a walk in some cases, over the tracks on the backside. So I just think logistics of where you can park and bringing children, dropping off to the site is a real challenge.
Totally understand what you're saying. The northernmost extent of the study area that we took, it's about a 3.5 minute walk to the facility. Now that's a walk that it could be done very commonly for parking, especially in areas that you may have to walk a certain distance to find an available parking space. And just to respond to a couple of the points that Mr. Jacquemart mentioned, we can provide the data of the other facilities that we studied. I'd like to just check with my client before we submit it to you because it is somewhat proprietary. The locations that we studied, I'm looking at them right now, are much more suburban and auto-based than a facility like Tuckahoe is. None are located 450 feet from a train station, so I wouldn't say that there's any relatable data in terms of foot traffic. I would say that 100% of the traffic of these facilities that we studied is vehicle-based. So that's one of the points that I made previously in my testimony, is that the analysis that we've done takes what we've seen, increases it to be conservative, and that's assuming 100% auto-based. And that's one of the points that I think Mr. Jacquemart and I can agree on, that maybe it's not 100% vehicle-based in this setting. One of the other items was that in the future, this property, or the parking surrounding the facility that we've studied, would be at 90% capacity in the future. That is accurate. However, that's only based on the amount of parking that we've studied. The other exhibit that I had up on the board that showed the areas in red, those are potential spaces that people could park in. There's a number of them are metered. They're not all permitted spaces. This is just saying that in the area that we studied, it's 90% capacity in the future. There's other places that you could park in the area, though.
Again, the municipal lots are those are permit parking, so I'm not sure how you would do that. Again, typically you can only park in those locations after 4 o'clock. To your point, perhaps a parent or two is going to have a permit parking, but I don't expect that to be a very large number. Again, keep in mind, you also have Andrews is in this building. I'm not sure how you guys are going to compete. I'm not sure what the different markets are for you guys. So I don't know if they have, for argument's sake, all the local Tuckahoe children, for argument's sake, and you'll be bringing children from further away. I don't know that, but if it was just you in this local area, I'd understand. But again, you have competition not only from Andrews, but you also have competition from local mom and pops that are nearby. Just a thought.
As a traffic engineer, I'm not sure I have much to say about that, but going
That's
back to
fine.
the point about other places to park in Tuckahoe,
Yeah.
there are a number that are permit spaces, but then in the same parking lot, in some instances, there are metered spaces and you pay via the app. Just wanted to get that onto the record.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's true, but all right. Yes. And turn your mic to
What is the ratio of students to teachers and students to aides?
First, we don't distinguish between teachers and aides. The way a child care center works, there is at least one licensed teacher in the facility, but most of the employees are, many of them are college students studying to be teachers, so you might classify them as aides, but they're caregivers. So ratios vary based on the age of the children. For example, the infants, you have a 1 to 55, well, that's a square foot ratio, but you have a 1 to 4 ratio, 1 caregiver to 4 children, where when you get to the toddlers, you have 1 to 5, and they increase as much as 1 to 9 when you get to the pre-KK. But if you were to take an average of the entire facility, which if it had license capacity of 178, we project that based on that number, you need 29 staff. And let me just I'll do the math for you.
When we say teachers here, are we talking about people who are licensed, or are we talking about just a label as to what their work may involve?
So, in response to your last question, there is, not every classroom has a licensed teacher in it. The way the licensing works with the state is there is a requirement that there is one licensed teacher on site at all times, but none of the other caregivers, really better to call them caregivers than teachers, are in the facility. So when I say, for example, the infants have a ratio of 1 caregiver to 4, there's one adult that's been, and then by the way, all the employees go through, and it's a state requirement, it's not just the employer's requirement, they go through criminal background checks and are determined that they're safe and trained to be around children. They go through CPR and first aid training. But if you take the ratio of the total occupancy, it's about 1 caregiver to every 6 children in the facility. So it's pretty.
One
pretty nice.
adult to, that could
Every
be a
s-
teacher or an
about
aide?
every 6, correct.
And there's one other thing. Do you have, is there any plan, because there are 2 other places where students are at that grade level in the village of Tuckahoe. Is there any plan to walk these students anywhere to a park or anything?
No. The facility has both an indoor and outdoor playground. So there is an outdoor playground that the children go into. It has age-appropriate equipment. It's actually separated based on age. So some of them are what we call infant and toddlers, and the other side of it is preschool. It has playground equipment, has playground surfacing for fall protection, has a fence around it. In fact, we feel, and this particular operator feels, that it's unsafe to take the children out of the environment and walk them to a park. It's just not, most major operators will not do that. It's not considered a safe practice. They want to keep them in a controlled environment to be safe. And this facility, because the building is oversized for our needs, allows us to have a fairly spacious indoor playground as well.
Thank you.
If I could maybe pick up, I'm sorry, Mr. Giacomo, did I say it correctly? So I designed both those centers you referenced. I wasn't aware that you did work on it, but you asked a really, I think, important question about the difference between parking for those that are dropping off and picking up and those that are actually parking and working. One thing I didn't note is my office is attached to a learning experience, so for the last 16 years. So I've been watching them come and go. And it's a much larger, it's actually a facility, I shouldn't say it's larger, it's about the same size as this facility, but it has capacity because it's in New Jersey. The laws are a little bit more liberal in terms of how many kids you can put in the box, of about 200. And in all the years I've been there, and I get to work, 7:30 every day, never more than like 6 parents there at the same time. So I want to emphasize, and I think our traffic engineer was saying that the drop-off pickup goes really over a 3-hour period. And when we have parking at a center, we view that a parking space can turn over up to 10 to 12 times an hour, just one. So, what we found, and I'm not sure he was clear about this, that the parking spaces there are actually, I think, 3 in front of the site, not 2, Mr. Chairman, but you might be right. And then I think there are 6 just right behind the site in front of the adjacent uses parking lot. We find that between 6:30 and 9, I think Mr. Valeri's traffic study showed that those were mostly wide open in terms of being available for drop-off and pickup. And because they're in such close proximity to our center, we think those would turn over rapidly. And we felt comfortable, and I'll add, our operator had to approve this site. They wouldn't want to come here. The last thing they want to do is open a site that doesn't function.
Sure.
They want to be here because it's Tuckahoe, because there's a train, there's lots of commuters. But they know their business. They deal with close to 30,000 kids a day. They wouldn't come and approve the site if they didn't think they could operate here. So they're confident about it. They're confident that not only is there enough children for the competition, but that there's additional children in the area. For that.
I am sure this facility will work. I'm just concerned about our residents and the impact your facility will have on our residents.
Understood.
Okay.
But I think the impact it'll have on your residents far outweighs any negative because it's a needed service.
Traffic is a very big concern in the village of Tuckahoe. That's all I have to say.
No, and
Okay.
rightfully so. I think you should be concerned.
Right. Okay.
I think the additional studies that you want, some of them are a little overkill, some of them are within reason, and we'll work with you, and perhaps we can talk offline with your traffic engineer about that,
Sure.
how to do
By
this
all means.
properly.
Just keep in mind, there's a lot of development still going on in Tuckahoe. So again, each development has an impact on our lights, our 2 traffic lights. The hotel will go live in perhaps in a couple of months. So again, it's just the exacerbation of all the different projects coming to Tuckahoe. And again, our streets are limited, our parking is limited, our lights are what they are. So
And
every little addition or every little second
So-
that goes to
And I think, as Mr. Valeri testified, there's tremendous, and your engineer, I think, backed up, there's tremendous pass-by or what we'll call people already in the flow of the traffic. And Mr. Chairman, you said something that I think was critical, but I got excited when you said it. You said that most of the people that are buying permits don't live in Tuckahoe, they're coming here.
Yeah,
I got excited about that because knowing the operator, they're gonna say, wow, that's more potential customers.
no question, sure.
So I think you will find, and as Mr. Relayer said, I don't know how you measure it, but I think you'll find a good amount of the people that are using those permit spots now and getting on that train are gonna use this childcare center. And when they find out that it's here, they may move their kids from another center, for example, because this may be more convenient for them. I don't know the capacity of the center that's in this building, but if I had to
It's about
guess,
the same size, yeah.
but I would imagine they have a waiting list.
They do have a waiting
So-
list,
so they-
and so does our permit parking.
So, understood.
That
Well,
could-
there are a few available, I asked your clerk, but not a lot, but.
I don't think there's any available, are there?
Two or three available, I think.
Okay.
That could be purchased, and they circulate. But, I think the point being is you've asked for additional information.
Yeah, I know,
and To
yeah.
help us get you to have a comfort level, and I think we have to provide it for you, so.
I appreciate that.
The only thing I want to add, which I probably shouldn't because I'm the lawyer, is we know we have to do homework they've asked us to do, but two things to bear in mind. When we're talking about a 90% capacity, this study really is based on the assumption effectively that both Epstein's and the Child Care Center are operating because it builds in the existing condition in determining the number of spaces that are out there, because it's adding in what's there now plus what's the anticipated demand of the traffic of the proposed use. So what's there now includes Epstein's. So they won't both be there.
I'm not sure how much Epstein's generating, how much.
Well,
parking
because we're
is
talking
generating,
about
yeah.
90 versus a lower percent
Yeah,
capacity.
again-
And number two, this study doesn't build in the idea that parents at the center will be using those train station lots. That is something that has been talked about to the board tonight.
No question. Again, we really can't quantify that because we really don't know.
Understood.
We will know if, once you guys open, but at this point, it's very difficult to quantify what that would be.
We understand we have homework to do.
Correct, okay. Oh, hold on. Have another comment?
I have one question. Your location is on a very busy street. And the drop-off, normally people want to drop their children directly into it. A possible suggestion is to talk to the owners of the unit of Tuckahoe Paint and Glass, strictly for drop-off, to go into that lot, cut a hole in the fence, put a gate there, and use that. That takes them off Columbus Avenue, which is, to me, is a safety hazard. I've lived in this village all my life, and Columbus Avenue has always been a busy street. It's probably less busy today than it was before urban renewal in 1957. But if you can find a safer way to drop off the children, and that might do it if some negotiations could be made. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay, is anyone here this evening from the public who wants to just shed some comments or concerns? Okay. Please, come forward.
No, we're not. So, Mr. Chair, just procedurally.
One second, ma'am.
Before
One
you-
second.
Before you can officially open a
Yeah, I'm not
public
opening.
hearing, the application has to be complete, and to have a completed application, they're gonna need the special permit from the zoning board.
Okay.
So I think there'll be an opportunity to officially open the public hearing, but again, I think if you want to
This
hear
is
from the
more
public now,
casual.
just to give
This is
everyone a
more
heads up
casual
of
at
what's
this point.
happening,
Yes.
kind of informally.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Identify yourself. Identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Corrine Laurie Mabin, and I am the Vice President of Community-Based Initiatives for Andrus.
Okay.
So I just wanted to just state that we have been providing childcare in the Tuckahoe community for over 50 years. As you mentioned, parking has been a great concern for us as well. So I'm truly interested in how the learning experience has identified best ways to park. There's definitely always a need for centers for children, but that has always been a concern for us, was the parking for
I know.
our parents and for our staff as well. And we too have explored ways to see how we can expand the center as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge, let you know that I was here tonight.
Yep.
And listening, and thank you for hearing our concerns as
Yeah,
well.
no, fully aware. Thank you. Anyone else wants to speak? Okay, so at this point, we need to send this application to the zoning board, correct?
Correct.
So do we, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we could put your concerns and.
Yeah, so we'll draft a letter, comments,
to the zoning board.
right. So the zoning board's gonna want the same information we just spoke about, I would imagine. We will want that information, so I hope you can do it so that you can present it to the zoning board and also, present it to us once you leave the zoning board. So we will send a letter with our concerns to the zoning board and yeah, at this
We'll
point.
provide that to the applicant too, so
Yes, okay.
what we discussed.
We do understand and agree we're in a catch.
It's called an approval.
'Cause-
It's called an approval.
No, but you can't approve it until the special permit's been issued. And they
Right.
can't issue the special permit till they know that your board, since your board's the one that will set the required number
Okay.
of parking spaces.
All right,
And you can't do that officially.
right.
Until they've given the permit. At some point, if you are satisfied, we're
Right.
going to ask you to tell them that's the.
No question, but we're going to need more data from you to make that kind of decision. So it's up to you. Do you want to go to the zoning board, or do you want to just do the studies and then come back to us? And what's
I
up?
suspect we'll want to process both things on a parallel basis.
That's fine. Okay.
To see how their reaction is as well.
Yes, no problem.
I
Okay.
agree with council, that makes sense. Just to keep
yes.
it moving.
Okay.
Thank you for your courtesy.
All right. Thank you for coming, and good luck.
Mr. Chair, we need another 2 minutes. I think they need to reboot again.
Let's do it. Welcome back. At this time, we call 10 Fisher.
Okay, so what are we doing next?
10 Fisher. 10 Fisher. 10 Fisher.
We should have bought that bank building. This way.
We'll share. Put one on the board. No, just. Oh, yeah, one on the board. Store front. I guess this. I don't think. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Lenny.
I'll start back here.
Please.
Where they put the soup stuff. In those things, they put the soups they're gonna have.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Leonard Brandis, the architect for Martine's Fine Bake Shop. We are here today to create a new entry for the store. They have received previous approval to do the interior of the space over, interior alteration, expanding the interior space, adding a public bathroom, a handicap bathroom for the public, a few more seating, more displays. And since they're doing that, they decided they wanted to increase and make the entry more productive also, make it more compatible to what the original building was. The existing building, up over here, has a big awning and very low windows. When we opened up the space under here, we found there was a beam going all the way across right underneath the roof. So we wanted to create new big windows, and we're going to raise the ceiling to create a new space in there. We're also, right now, there's a very narrow 3-foot by 3-foot entryway, which is very awkward, especially for young mothers with strollers, and we have a lot of those coming into the space. So we wanted to make a new handicap entrance, which now has an additional 18 inches on the side of the door, so it meets code, and also only 18 inches deep, which also meets code. So it'll be a lot easier for everybody to use. I have some photos of the existing space over here and the stores around us, and also a colored rendering of showing what we're doing. We are basically extending the brick and putting planters that'll be seasonal. They'll come in and out, as we always have planters in front of the store now. Right now, the painting is different. It's colored over here is different. I actually kept looking at my photographs. I went there. They actually painted the brick.
Okay.
So
Of the adjacent property?
The adjacent property painted the brick, which is
Okay.
why, and that's why it's a straight line going down as well. It's not
That's the
it's a-
pharmacy. The
Pharmacy.
Okay. Yeah. They,
We didn't plan on painting the brick. We
That's
wanted
fine.
to clean our brick, and we're going to match the brick because it's underneath right now. It's aluminum. As you can see on the photographs, there's aluminum underneath here. So now we're going to be using brick, bringing the windows down, getting lots of light in. And That is our proposal.
Can you, from the color rendering, it looks like you have two different materials at the side light of the door. Is that intentional, or is that just a?
No, it's supposed to be black.
No, no, no. I'm talking about the brick, the bulkhead on the left-hand
Oh,
side.
this one over
Yeah.
here? It's recessed in, it's supposed to be
It's just
shadow
shadow.
line.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure it's the same material.
And
Okay,
we are using black framework around the windows and trim.
okay. And as far as signage,
Signage will be coming before the boards. For signage, they're
Okay.
they want signs in the windows.
Yeah, it looks pretty.
Boards exist now, and we're just gonna continue with that.
okay. And it's just a.
Just back up a second. You're putting in a bathroom facility?
No, no, that work was.
That is in the previous approvals. We
Oh,
have in
okay.
the bathroom facility.
Okay,
Just looking at-
just, that's the front of the store
This is
then?
just for the front of the store right now. Since they're doing all that work on the interior, they think while the space is gonna be closed for a short period of time, they wanna be able to do the front as well.
You're showing two menu boards on either side. Those,
Those are existing right now.
they are existing right now?
They're existing now. I don't
And
know.
they belong to whom?
There's one over here, you can see it on, right here. They're in the photos, I could bring the photos closer.
If you don't
to
mind, I'm getting older, my vision's
We're all
going.
getting old on that.
You're young.
Want to see? Menu boards are existing there now.
Look at it over here.
Yes.
That's all, that's all there. Do you see it?
Yeah, I saw it.
Hey, thank you, Glenn.
Good donuts then.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
No.
Any questions on your side? Okay. So at this point,
Yep.
So at this point, I'd like to open a public hearing. Is anyone here to speak on this I'm sorry, to vote? Okay, I'm sorry. Say again? Oh, okay. I make a motion to open a public hearing. Can I have a second, please? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anyone here this evening to speak on this application? Since no one is here this evening to speak on our application, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Can I have a thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this point, we'd like to read a resolution.
All right.
So
Seek-
moved.
Okay?
Okay. Seeker resolution pursuant to regulations of Seeker, this board finds that the action taken herein and the unlisted action subject to the requirements of Seeker and its implementing regulations. The board is in possession of all information reasonably necessary to make the determination as to the environmental significance of the proposed site plan application. Number 3, that the action taken here shall not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and it is declared that a negative declaration is hereby adopted with regard to this action. The following is a resolution decision of the Planning Board of the Village of Tuckahoe. Applicant Martine's Fine Bake Shop, LLC, is seeking to construct a new facade to their existing business located at 10 Fisher Avenue. The proposed facade will greatly enhance the look of the existing building, which is in need of improvements. We find that the applicant has met its burden as to the 7.1 of the zoning code, and therefore the application is approved as submitted.
Okay, I make a motion to approve this application. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so you're approved. Very nice. It's a nice looking storefront, and
And
I don't have to
beautiful
say
storefront.
good luck because you have an amazing product. So
And don't change the menu because it's the best bakery in Westchester.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. At this point, I'd like to call up 72 Main Street, a new cafe shop, and seems like again Mr. Brandeis is the architect. You want to?
Okay, what do we got?
Want to do this one as well?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Leonard Brandis, still here. What we're doing here, there's an existing coffee shop across the street on Main Street at 72 Main Street, which had a breakfast bar, and they had seating as well as what we're doing now. We are planning on renovating the space on the interior at this time only, where we're going to be adding a full kitchen in there. Previously, there was no cooking allowed. It was only refrigerated products that they were selling, pre-made products from other places. This is going to be real food being made, full kitchen. We're taking out the old bathroom, putting in 2 new handicap accessible bathrooms into the space for the public. And we're going to ending up with about the same amount of seats as what we had before. That was existing space. The one question that we had in the work session was in terms of the exhaust system, where we have going out the back of the building. And took some additional photographs of the back of the building so we could see what's there. So here's the front of the building, going up the alleyway, and then going in the alleyway over here, we have, right here, you can see existing chimney on the building adjacent to it, going up the side of the building. There's another view of it over here. I'll bring this forward so you can see that closer. And additional that we also have this parking lot over here with garages and just space over here. The back of the building with a window over here is very tight, and I need to have this chimney at least 3 feet away from a window so I can put it on the other side where I do have that space. And that's the whole purpose for having to put it on the side of the building at this point.
So can I ask you a question? So since you're putting the exhaust vent on the side of the building, right? You don't know the diameter of the exhaust vent at this time, do you?
No, I don't have the final diameter. It's depending on how much there is.
No, the CFM, so no, I get all of that, you know, so typically it's gonna be what?
Typically, 10 by 20 is what we would have typically.
10 by 20,
We're
okay.
going to try to keep it as narrow.
Right.
We'll start at the top of the building over here.
Now, the reason I'm asking is that it looks like you have a parking garages in the back area there, right?
Yes.
Correct. So a couple of questions. Number one, are any of those spaces going to be for your client?
No.
In other words, can
No,
you
those
park back there?
spaces- No, this is for the apartments upstairs.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So,
Partially not.
right.
It's a 3-story building. You have apartments across the whole top here.
Got
so
you. Okay. So do you know the width of the driveway? The reason I'm asking is because you're adding this pipe out there. I just don't want it to impact. I know it'll be higher potentially.
It's starting at 10 feet high.
Okay, so I just want to make
So
sure. Is that the
fans
ceiling height in that
can
area?
still go. The ceiling is high up there and it goes up. We can go between the rafters to get up up to the high as 10 feet high.
What's
I
this?
measured
What?
that out.
No, you did measure that out? Okay.
I
I just
already
want
measured that out.
to make sure it doesn't interfere with
No,
parking.
you won't interfere with any normal cars.
Right.
If there a major truck, which is not going to go through there.
No, no.
Deliveries
yeah.
back there.
Right.
Yeah,
Trucks.
I mean, the width is about 11 feet wide.
Right.
So it's tight to begin with. As you can
Yes,
see.
that's
It's
what
a narrow space.
I know. I just didn't want to infringe on that anymore.
Right. I mean, right now, there are vans go back there. Just
Okay. And one of the other things I'd like is whatever when you put your exhaust stack out there, just to paint it the color of the building brick so it kind of disappears. It doesn't become an eyesore.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay.
Bring photos closer so you can see more
Sure.
better if that helps.
Thanks. Smaller foam board next time.
Truck deliveries will not be coming there.
What's that?
Truck deliveries will not be coming
Can't
through
get
that.
through there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay.
I'm open for questions.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. It's a small restaurant. I'm not sure what other. I mean, other than parking, there's no parking with this building. It's on-street parking. The coffee shop that was there before was doing fine.
We're anticipating that a
Yeah.
lot of traffic will be people
Oh,
coming home,
right.
coming up, walking up from the station. You have a lot of new apartments at the top of Main Street.
No, no question. Yeah.
I think they'll be very busy just from that.
Is it going to be open for lunch and dinner, or just
Yes,
dinner?
it'll be lunch and dinner.
Lunch and dinner. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions?
No, I think
Any questions?
we covered.
At this point, I make a motion to open the public hearing. Can I have a second, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Okay. Anyone here this evening to speak on this application? Since there is no one here this evening to speak on this application, I make a motion to close the public hearing. Can I have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this point, okay, at this point, we're going to read a resolution.
Seek a resolution pursuant to regulations of secret of this board finds that, number one, the action taken herein is an unlisted action subject to the requirements of secret and its implementing regulations. This board is in possession of all information reasonably necessary to make the determination as to the environmental significance of the proposed site plan application. 3, that the action taken herein shall not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and is declared that a negative declaration is hereby adopted with regard to this action.
Okay, so at this point, I make a motion to approve this application. Can I have a second, please?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, and good luck, and welcome to
Chair, that
Tuckahoe.
was just a seeker application. He still has the,
I gotta go.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
The following is the resolution decision of the Planning Board of the Village of Tuckahoe, New York. Applicant ODO LLC is seeking to construct a new cafe restaurant to be located at 72 Main Street, Tuckahoe. Prior to the application, there existed at said location a cafe that did not have a kitchen. This applicant is looking to expand the use to include a kitchen and expand the bar area. There will also be the addition of 2 handicap bathrooms on the premises. We find that the applicant has met its burden as to 7-1 of the zoning code, and therefore the application is approved with the following conditions. The applicant will have the premises serviced by natural gas and will not use a propane tank.
Okay, so at this point, I make a motion to approve this project. Have a second, please.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, congratulations and welcome to Tuckahoe and good luck. All right. All right, so last and final, 125 Marbledale, new indoor sports facility. And again, it's Mr. Brandeis, the only architect who works in Tuckahoe.
Thank you,
Good night,
gentlemen.
guys.
Good luck.
Oh, this is that one, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it. That's Mr. Jennings' location.
Yeah, no.
I have no problem with it, except for whatever they're gonna do for parking.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of the Board, members, Leonard Brandis, architect for 125 Marbledale Road. We're looking to create a new space out of an existing warehouse. The space previously was actually a automotive body shop, and actually still has the equipment, which will be removed from the space, and now presently a storage facility. We'd like to turn this into an athletic space where it's going to be a training center for baseball facilities. Main thing is going to be adding is a batting cages, training facilities, and we're going to have this to be mostly from like 8 years old to through high school. The facilities, I think we want to have George come up and give a little talk about it. Tell you more what's going on.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here. I'm George Jaquette. I'm one of the leaders of Team Crush Baseball, along with my partner, Jerry DeFabia. We have been around baseball in this community for many years. Jerry is the current high school baseball coach in Tuckahoe. I was a board member of Tuckahoe Youth Association for much of the last decade. Jerry has been very instrumental in all of the baseball instruction that happens with the youth in our community for at least the last 10 years. Today, and in the past, the way that that training happens in the winter months, in the off season, is in Portchester, New Rochelle, Elmsford, Mount Vernon, Ardsley. Basically every other town that has an indoor facility that we can get our hands on, and we bounce around depending on what's available, who's got a new space, who's got availability, et cetera. And we've had the idea of creating our own indoor space for the better part of the last decade, because the winter months can be very taxing, especially for Jerry, going from Portchester to New Rochelle to Elmsford to Mount Vernon to Bronxville High School on a Sunday, to the community center in Tuckahoe on a Saturday, to work with the various teams in our community. So the idea is to allow the kids that play baseball in our community to train in our community. And we have been working with the Dennings, who own 125 Marbledale now, have it's being used, they're leasing it to another business that's moving out in the summer. And we think it could be a great opportunity for Team Crush Baseball to create an indoor baseball facility. So we're baseball, and that's what we do. We don't do soccer, we don't do lacrosse, we do baseball. We have 150 kids in our organization, aged 13 to 17. The Team Crush was formed really as an offshoot of TYA. So when children, baseball players, graduate TYA at age 12, historically they really had no place to go. And for those that want to continue playing baseball, we created Team Crush. And today we've got, as I said, about 150 kids aged 13 to 17 from these communities and other places around Westchester. So the facility is pretty simple. You can think of it as 3 full-length batting cages, and 2 sort of half-length batting cages that would be used for tee work and what we would call front toss or side toss. Obviously, all of the cages would be netted. The netting would be set up on a retractable system so that every piece of the indoors could be multi-use. So we'd have turf on the floors, we'd have padding on the walls, we'd have nets around the cages, because that's what you need for batting cages. The way that we think about it is it's an appointment only. It's not a walk-in business. This is not like you walk in and you take 20 swings off a pitching machine. It's kind of team-based. So the way that we think about the occupancy is we would have, a team is kind of 12 to 15 kids. So we'd have 12 to 15 kids at a time, a couple of coaches, maybe there would be somebody in a reception area. So the kind of occupancy of the place at any one time would never really get above 20, is how we would see it. It's a nights and weekends business because of our customers are students, so they're in school during the day. So we would intend to be open when they're not in school. So that's afternoons, after school, at night, during the week, on the weekends would be our busy times, particularly in the off-season in the winter months, and then following the school calendar. So when the kids are out of school for spring break or February break or winter break, we'd like the opportunity to be able to have our facility open, work with our teams and other people in the area that are interested in baseball.
So I just like to understand, is it hitting or pitching? I'm a little confused as exactly what you're doing, because when we met at the workshop, it felt like you were doing primarily pitching training, not necessarily batting cages. Maybe I misread, perhaps. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's if you kind of look at the diagram, there's kind of 3 full-length tunnels.
Right.
The way that we currently have it designed is we'd have 2 full-length hitting tunnels and a full-length pitching tunnel where we'd be able to do pitching instruction.
So when you say hitting, right, is someone pitching at a batter, or is it a machine pitching at a batter?
It could be both. I would say 90% of our training is not using a machine, or more. I would say.
Okay.
It's you'd have a coach throwing or tossing to a player.
Okay. All right.
Just to also mention, we are going to have strength and agility training also as well in this area over here. So we do have planning for several areas. We're also adding another bathroom, unisex handicap bathroom as well over here.
Right.
So we are going to have that.
So talk to us about the parking outside.
Now, the parking outside is existing. We will be closing off the existing entryway, which is over here. We're going to be closing that, so we'll be adding 1 parking spot to the street.
You're taking out the curb?
We're going to take out the curb.
Okay.
We do not need the curb cut. We're filling in the area over here. We will be using that area for an emergency exit, especially after the last meeting that you had. This one is going to definitely be closing down because it's not on our property. So we do need the 2 exits over here.
Right,
So
right.
that's required.
And the main entrance is on the left-hand side
Main
of the drawing?
entrance is over here.
Right.
And we can look at also the elevations that we just, we have photographs of the existing space over here. And one of the things that, where's the elevations in the back? So what we're doing is we are going to have that entrance over here. Our main entrance is going to be over here. We are going to be putting a new awning in this area so that we can see that clearly, so people know exactly where to go. The entry, the side entrance I have over here. Put that down here for now. And that has also the awning going over it. There's a Team Crush emblem over here, which is, I'm not sure what it is, but it's biting.
Where is it?
wall. It's
I mean,
right over
yeah,
there.
I like that logo, and I wish you would have used it prominently or perhaps on the building itself.
Well, we are doing it on the building, the entrance
Yeah,
over here.
okay.
It's on
No, no, yeah, I see it on
we
second
walking
page,
through,
yeah,
we are putting
yeah,
that in.
yeah.
What's the square footage of the building, interior? Do you have that? 4,500 square feet?
Now, one of the ways also to decorate the building a little bit more, so make it a bit more interesting and look a little nicer in the neighborhood, we are adding some banding on the building and some colors. And I do have color chart, color group right here. So we have the colors listed on the drawing that you have, that I handed out to you. So we have these colors going through there. The orange is also, the orange and blue and gray are part of the Team Crush logo.
No, I get it.
And that's the color, so we're using that, creating a more cream space, and then up on top, doing the white here with the stars.
Right.
The stars will give it a little more decoration, a little bit more playful, and let people know. Two large bats in the middle covering the door, because you don't want people to know that as an entrance. That is an exit, and it does say exit, but at the same time, it does say baseball.
I thought we were going to see Yankee bunting up on top of it.
Are those bats painted on or decorative?
They're painted on, they're decorative.
Okay, okay.
These are just decorative, as I said,
Yeah.
mostly to keep people out, but also to let people know that it is baseball. We will have a team logo, team name, Team Crush Baseball over the front entrance, over that exit over here. We do have
Yeah.
the existing brickwork over here that we're going to be closing in that door. So
You may want to consider using the logo over that, those bats.
we might do that.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice logo, and I think it's, rather than just
Yeah,
little
absolutely.
chintzy text, I'm sorry, but,
That's fine with me.
yeah.
That works for everybody.
Okay.
I think it's such a great add to the community. It's real. It's,
No, it's a great location. It's a
Great.
great ad for the community. I just want for the record, I just want to go over things we discussed at the workshop. So your hours of operation will be from 3 to 10 p.m. on a weekdays, right? And then
Correct.
Saturday and Sunday will be 8 to 8. And then during the school holidays, you'll go from 8 to 8 weekdays and weekends.
Correct.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're all aware of that. And you're going to have a capacity of 15, roughly 18 people?
18 people, usually maybe 20 at the most, we're
Okay.
considering.
Mhm.
Because it's going to be the training, because you have the instructors, and there will
Yeah.
be several instructors. This is
Okay.
basically one-on-one training. This isn't just somebody going in, as you said, nobody's just going to go in there just to hit the ball, just to hit the bats.
Yeah,
That's not
exactly.
what this is about. This is real training. That's why
No,
I said
no.
we have stretching, we have strengthening, we have, all types of.
excuse me if you mentioned this already, but what's the typical capacity at any given time when you're training? And how,
We train one team at a time, and one
Okay.
team is 12 to 15 players, a couple of coaches. Maybe we would have, somebody sitting at a front desk.
right.
So that's kind of I kind of hard to see it ever being over 20.
Right.
Um,
You'll have to expand.
yeah.
Can I
That would
say
be a
my
good
can I
problem.
can I say my line I said last time? If you build it, they will come.
Well, I hope you're right. I'm going to write that down.
It's my favorite movie. So
Right. And we also talked about adding a bike rack for the older kids. Where do you plan on placing that?
Yes, actually,
Kind of right next to the main entrance.
we did want the bike rack in front of the main entrance, and actually, I don't think I got that on the drawing, but we can note that in there. It's actually-
Okay, just want to make sure.
But bike rack wise, will be at the front entrance over here. There's actually a area and plantings in front over here, so we wanted to put that over there.
right, that's good.
Okay, and then I had November to April. Is that your busy periods, or is that?
Yeah, so
Because I wrote it down, but I forgot to add why.
so the way this business works is, in normal months,
People outside.
of spring and summer, you're outside.
Right.
And that puts a lot of pressure on the business. So the busy period is when outside is not available. So that's typically when the facility will be used at its, heaviest time. It's kind of hard to imagine the facility being used in August or July when the kids are all outside playing. But when we get weather like this,
Yeah,
like
okay.
today, we had to cancel because we
Right.
didn't have a place to go.
Right.
Hopefully, next summer, we'll have a place to go.
Right. So you're not going to use this facility for any other activities other than just baseball. So in other words, when it's like the ice cream, right? You sell most of your ice cream from May to November, October, and then the winter months. Hopefully, you made enough money during the summer that you carried you over the winter months. So I just want to be clear: this is the only thing you guys will be doing in this building, correct?
Yes, but let me be a little bit more specific with.
Please.
So there is pitching, there is hitting,
Correct.
there is what we call arm care,
Mhm.
there is strength and conditioning, there's speed and agility,
Okay.
there's yoga, right? That all of our players who are members of Team Crush participate in or will participate in this facility. So yes, there will be activities outside of specifically hitting and pitching, which maybe you would define as baseball, happening in the facility throughout the course of the year.
It's not going to become a yoga studio. It's not going to become a gym of some sort or.
But-
Again, as long as it all has to do with your
There's
program,
yeah, Phoenix Fitness is right next door.
I get it.
So,
I just want to understand your mission. That's all.
yeah. No,
Okay.
this is it's for kids who love baseball.
Great. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions? So let's. I'd like to talk about your elevation. I think it's a great start. I don't think you hit a home run in this one, to use a baseball metaphor. And I would like you guys to just maybe take another stab at this. Yeah, I think it needs a little more refinement. I like your shirt. I like your logo, and I know you use some of those elements, but I think they can also be used a little bit better. I think I'd like to see some additional design options for the exterior.
Like
Facade type.
Yeah, I mean,
Themes.
maybe you become a little more solid. I mean, rather than having all these colors, maybe it's
well, the building is solid now.
it's white. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think the big challenge is because the entrance on the side versus
Yeah.
that center thing.
I know you tried that.
You want
Yeah.
it bigger and taller.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks great. I think it's it's come a long way.
Again, I think it's a great start. Like I said, you didn't hit a home run. I'd like to get at least a triple out of this if I can. I'd like you to take another stab at it. But however, we do not want to stop you from proceeding with your work. So at this point, I think we're comfortable with your operation. We're comfortable that you guys can get started. But I think we'd like you guys to take another potential stab at the exterior coloration of the building. And again, it's only basically to help you with this, just like if you look at pause and plays. I mean, you go down a building, you go down Marbledale, and it's boom, it's in your face, it's right there. It's so again, I just want that for your building as well, so that you become like an icon, on Marbledale. So as soon as you pass by, yeah, this is the place I got to go. Or if you don't go there, you want to be able to say, hey, I would like to go to that place. So again, that's what I'm thinking.
Concern was getting a little too playful.
Say again?
Like having a bouncing ball, things like that. That was thought of in part of this, as part of this, but I thought it was getting a little too far. If you take a look at the ice skating building, which is fairly successful, just keeping very simple lines and colors, and that's all they did there to create that building without going crazy.
I'm not asking you to go crazy. I'm just saying I'm asking you to take another look at it. That's all. Matter. You are a talented architect. You get all the work in Tuckahoe for some reason, which is great. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah. So I mean, I think again, like I said, I think we feel comfortable with the project itself. But I think as a condition of approval, we'd like to see some additional designs. But but we don't want to impede on you guys starting your work. I know you have a limited window, and this is the time for you to build it, as they say. So hopefully by the time November comes, you'll be ready to receive your students. All right. So at this point,
as you mentioned, it doesn't affect the physical construction of the interior at all. This is just strictly facade.
yeah, you can get working basically.
Right. It doesn't slow you down.
All right. So anything else? So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Can I, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, great. Is anyone here this evening to speak on this application? There's only 5 of us left here. I make a motion to close the application. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, at this point, I'd like to read a resolution. Village of Tuckahoe, Planning Board Resolution, team applicant slash owner, Team Crush Baseball. Location of the project is 125 Marbledale Road, Tuckahoe. Section 35, Block 1, Lot 1C. Description of work is perform interior alterations to an existing building located at 125 Marbledale Road to create a baseball training center with batting, pitching cages, and stretching areas for ages 8 to 18. The facility will utilize 2 existing bathrooms and add a handicapped unisex bathroom. Secret resolution. Pursuant to the regulations of secret, this board finds that 1, the action taken herein is an unlisted action subject to the requirements of secret and its implementing regulations. 2, this board is in possession of all information reasonably necessary to make the determination as to the environmental significance of the proposed site plan application. 3, that the action taken herein shall not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, or it's declared that a negative declaration is hereby adopted with regards to this action. So make a motion to approve this. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's good. I have a second one, yes. Okay. The following is the resolution decision of the Planning Board of the Village of Tuckahoe, New York. Applicant Team Crush Baseball is seeking to perform interior alterations to an existing building located at 125 Marbledale Road. The applicant is seeking to use the premises as a baseball training center with batting, pitching cages, and a stretching area. The training center will be used for the applicants ages 8 through 18. We find that the applicant has met its burden as to the 7-1 of the zoning code, and therefore the applicant is approved with the following conditions. 1, the applicant will provide a bicycle rack at the premises. 2, the hours of operation shall be as follows: Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. No, it should be 3 to 8 p.m., no? I'm sorry, 3 to 10. Sorry. I just shorted you 4 hours. 3 to 10 during school days, and then Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If the schools are out of session for the summer, recess, or holidays, then the hours may be extended from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The curb cut in front of the premises shall be removed at the direction and approval of the Tuckahoe DPW. 4, the applicant shall contribute $1,950 toward the installation of short-term metered parking in front of the applicant's location. This will prevent commuters parking in front of the applicant location so as to deprive the applicant customers from parking in the vicinity of the premises. And I'm going to say 5, the applicant shall make the following improvements to the facade. I'm going to make a contingent, what's the right wording? Contingent on approval of revised elevation, or what language should
Well,
be
I think
used?
we're going to have them come back for architectural review, so
Okay.
make it conditioned on architectural review for the facade.
Okay, so it's basically going to be conditioned on architectural review for
So
the
you'll need to come
facade.
back then for the,
So this will allow you to file your permits and get your project going. Okay, so at this point, I'm making a motion to approve this project with the conditions. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good luck, guys. Congratulations, and we'll look forward to your revised elevations. Have a good evening.
you.
Since we have no more business, I make a motion to close this public hearing. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Good night, everyone.
Play ball.
Next month.
Play ball.